What's up, y'all? I've got my boy Birdie here. We got another good one for you today. Say hi, Birdie.
Wait, oh yeah, meat lovers. Yeah. What's up? I'm back again.
The meat lovers.
It's gonna be a fun one. Yeah.
He almost called y'all meatballs, but I told him not to. That was weird. I mean, not that meat lovers is not weird, but hey, you know. Anyways, today we are going over Monster Hunter Discourse, our favorite thing to do, your favorite thing to do. I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's either of our favorites, but at least it's kind of entertaining, huh? But we've got a post that shook up the world on Twitter, apparently.
Yeah, look at them views.
You may have never heard of it or seen it, but hey, it had 7.7 million views. A lot of engagement. We're just gonna dive right in. Put your hazmat suits on. Diving into comment threads on Twitter is, well, it's a chore. Let's get to it. So, as we see here, we have Zelda Hunter, 130 hours. Sucks for me to admit, but Monster Hunter Wilds is too boring. The gameplay is nearly perfect, but it's not peak Monster Hunter. The content is too weak and not super inspired. I can't find any meaningful incentive to keep playing, which is fine. But I had more fun and purpose in World or past games. And the very sad face that goes along with it. Alright, pulling up the picture. We see the playtime. We see, we see friend code as well. Please, don't look up this person, by the way, to harass them if you disagree. That's goofy. We got the drip here, not bad. Good. No sacred drip though. Look at that. That's a big L. I think that's the biggest L of this whole post. What do you think, Bert?
I don't have any drip on my sacred either.
Oh god, big L and Birdie, bro.
You know what? No, because I like my design, and I think the freaking drip it covers it up. I like it's just natural.
You think it's just, wait? You have like the you have the premium edition. You put that the horned setup on it.
No,
and everything.
No, I have everything. I just default. No clothes.
No way, dude.
Naked sacred.
Everyone in the comments put Birdie L. I'm just kidding. If you do that though, that will be funny. I will heart and like that. But so we see here. This is a pretty incendiary tweet, right? Like,
yeah.
Wilds is too boring. It's not peak, which is, it's fine to say it's not peak if you don't think it's peak. Yeah. But to say it's too boring, the content is weak, not super inspired. Not super inspired is pretty harsh. I can't find any meaningful incentive to keep playing, which is fine. I had more fun and purpose in World or past games. So you have like all of the different aspects of ambiguous criticism, right? Like, this is boring. It's not inspired. It's weak. I have no incentive. I had more fun and purpose in World or past games. And there's not really an elaboration. Now I get it, it's Twitter. You can't really type up huge summaries. But typically you'll see like more elaboration in the comments. So let's see if we see that. On first glance though, what do you think about this post, Birdie? I know that we're not, we had to see really what they mean, but you think they were trying to kick the hornet's nest a little bit with this one? It seems like they were.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a completely opposite stance on this than this person. Like, I don't need an incentive if the gameplay is fun. For me personally, right? Like, if I have fun playing, just playing, the rewards are fine. They're like secondary. True, I just have fun beating monsters.
Well, I mean, you could make the argument that your incentive is the gameplay, right? And like, if the weapons weren't fun or the monsters weren't fun to fight, you wouldn't have an incentive to play. And well, exactly. Maybe we'll see. I feel the same way as you. I'm very much a gameplay focused person. I do think that growth, honing your character in both fight and build are important, like having pieces to work towards, having things to unlock. I do think that plays a role, and I think that does help with my own personal incentives in playing. And if that's what Zelda Hunter is leaning towards, like maybe they want more optional quests. There's hardly any optional quests in Wilds. Maybe if they want more of that kind of stuff, maybe that's where they're lacking. Maybe we'll find out in the comments because they didn't elaborate here. Right now, it's just a huge jab towards Wilds, and we're about to see. But let's see what he's got going on. People is cooking you in the replies, but I don't think you're wrong in what you're trying to express. You just posted it too early when people is still on the honeymoon phase. It's not like 130 hours in 1 month makes any difference on the point. So I imagine we're not getting all the context here. I think he's remarking on other things. It'll get better. 130 hours is great value X dollar, in my opinion. It's Marco Meatball, actually. Hell yeah. 130 in 2 weeks seems like you need a break. Okay, so now we're starting to. Okay, we're starting to see.
Wait, did you see what he replied to Marco Meatball though?
Right now we're trying to get context for Shin Cry. We'll come back. We'll come back for that one.
All right.
I think Shin Cry's is just boosted because he's got the most engagement right now. But without the context, it's hard to know what he's talking about. But we've got 130 in 2 weeks. Seems like you need a break. You played 17 to 18 hours straight every day, and now you're going to come play in the gym. Get a child, take a bath in God's silence. All right,
he cooked
Paradigm City. Golly. Golly, 140 hours. The game came out a week ago. Jesus Christ, dude. 130 hours and too boring. You could have stopped 50 hours ago. You played 130 hours of the game that came out less than 2 weeks, and you're already bored of the game. Sounds to me like you did everything and enjoyed it to the fullest. Okay, so people are cooking Zelda Hunter. This came out March 12th. I know we're getting to it a little bit late, but this came out March 12th. The game released February 28th. So yeah, it was less than 2 weeks before this this was posted. This person played a lot of Wilds.
Yeah.
I think Shin Cry is making the point that the 130 hours is not really it doesn't really make a difference. Like people that are criticizing this post saying, oh, it's because you played so much in a short amount of time, it invalidates what you said. That's not a good argument.
I think this makes his point. That makes his point, because I think he's trying to say that in older games he could play more than that, and he wouldn't get bored, right?
Well,
that's what I think.
So yeah, that's you're probably tracking well. I think that's probably what Zelda Hunter is poking at. Like 130 hours, too boring. I could put in way more hours than World or past games. I hate that they didn't include Rise. Whatever, Zelda Hunter, Big L. Just kidding. If you didn't like Rise, whatever. But Shin Cry's pointing out that argument doesn't really work against what Zelda Hunter's trying to say. And Zelda Hunter says, oh yeah, I mean, it's Twitter and my post is purposefully vague due to the character limitation, so you obviously get such reaction, especially if you don't have a long history with the series. I know what I said, and I'm not backing down or feeling any way to all of this. Okay, so they knew they would get this reaction, which kind of validates that whole maybe they're kicking the bucket, or kicking the hornet's nest. 130 hours is 5 days worth of non-stop play. In 2 weeks, do you have a job? Not even hating. What? Okay, the game is here. Okay, so you guys need to get a fucking job and a girlfriend. Okay, it'll get better. 130 hours is a great value X dollar in my opinion. Marco Meatball's tracking like it is a great value per dollar.
I was gonna say, in every other game, people wouldn't bat an eye, right?
Yeah.
For such a like what's it called? Value per hour or value per dollar, hour per dollar, whatever. In most games, you don't even get there. Elden Ring comes to mind, you know, for something like that, or other games that might be just too grindy.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, that's the whole thing about like the classic like hardcore old world Monster Hunter fan being like, I have 3,000 hours in my every Monster Hunter game up until this point, to the point where it's a kind of a meme at this point.
Well, I mean, even world people, like, you know, the people that start with World or maybe even Rise,
they're copying them. They're copying them.
I was thinking all these people that comment, have they?
Yeah,
maybe
but there's people that put thousands of hours into Far Cry 3. There's people that put thousands of hours into Skyrim. Like, it's not a Monster Hunter exclusive thing. It's just kind of like one of those Monster Hunter isms where the fan base has adopted a way of speaking and they kind of make it a personality trait. It can be fun, but it can also be extremely corny.
Man, shut the hell up.
Shut up. Look at this dude. One of those YouTubers.
Probably,
this man's probably not even a veteran,
man.
I bet you started with World.
How many hours you got? How many hours
50,
you got?
50 hours?
If you don't have 3,000 hours,
3,000 hours
in every
minimum.
Monster Hunter game ever,
minimum.
don't talk.
Unless you're a veteran.
I want to see you making videos ever again.
Making videos.
Like,
No, I'm just saying, like, the average playtime of Monster Hunter is longer than most games for most people, I think.
I don't think so. I don't think the
Really?
average person is putting in those kinds of hours.
I don't think they also put in just 50 hours, which is like average for games nowadays for a lot of them.
I don't think you're right, man. I don't
Really?
like. Yeah, I think that you're looking at a very verbal, like minority.
Maybe.
That it's
Maybe.
online, like chronically online. You got to think like 28 million people bought Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
Only 14 million bought Iceborne.
Yeah, so, I mean, those 14 million must have...
Out of those
Put in-
14 million, there's
Yeah.
probably not that many that even beat Fatalis.
True, but they probably put a lot, some hours, a good amount of hours.
No, there are
No?
people that only play the story and put it down, dude.
Yeah, true.
And these
true,
stories in these games are not very long. Like World, Wilds, Rise, you could burn all of them in less than 15 hours.
Well, we can, but I don't think a newcomer can.
Maybe not. But
Yeah.
there's definitely like, I don't know. I burned through Base World pretty fast, even though that was my first Monster Hunter game. The only Jin took a lot longer to get through, but that's because Jin is just a longer game. It's just a way longer.
And a lot of fluff.
Yeah, Jin
People
is
can
probably the. I mean, even like thinking about Oceanus vid about Generations having too much content, like GU having too much content.
Yeah.
He's like, it took me 11 hours, even though I had God mode on and one could one hit the monsters. He's
What
like, it's
the
too
hell?
long. So like, yeah, like Jin U is just built different. So
Yeah.
I would say maybe if we were talking about GU, but
Yeah.
and you know what? Any of the older Jin games, it would probably take you a lot longer to get through solo just because they're so much more difficult and they were not meant for single player experiences as a whole. Like they weren't created with that in mind. So, and there's also more fluff, gather quests, all that. I mean, sure, there was a little bit of that in World, but not really.
Yeah. Go bring some eggs back.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, I mean, so the common person feels exactly how Marco Meatball feels. 130 hours is a great value per dollar. That's the common sentiment. That's the common gamer sentiment. Maybe not in the hardcore Monster Hunter space, but that is the common gamer sentiment. And to tell you the truth, that is part of the discourse. That is especially with the arrival of a lot of new fans in Monster Hunter. Yeah, we had a large amount come in World, and we had a good portion come in during Rise, but Wilds is a whole new beast. We have a lot of people that came in, and there's now new rhetoric used to describe these people, tourists. We see the word tourist being thrown around in the Monster Hunter community for these people that are coming in, and they just kind of want to be a part of the next big game. And, you know, whether it's content creators or just people that are buying the game because of content creators or because of marketing, they have no idea what's going on with the game. They have no idea the culture behind it. They don't know the expectations behind the games. And so whenever they weigh in on their opinions, you know, it can be sometimes dismissed with, oh, you're just a tourist. You don't have much invested into this series anyway. You don't care about it the same way we do. And from that perspective, yeah, that is kind of a valid argument. You know, you're not invested into these games. You don't understand why this matters to me. You don't understand why. And I think like Zelda Hunter at this point makes sense to be. I can't fathom what you mean by fun and purpose. Makes sense to be for real. There are many more things I want to say to develop my feels for the game, just not enough characters. Okay.
Huh? What is... Okay, never mind. That
So
comment below that is...
that's French, it looks like. But the Yeah, so it looks like Zelda Hunter wants to kind of say some of that, but they either don't know how or they don't want to.
Or don't care enough, I guess, even though they cared enough to make a post.
Well,
so.
Yeah, they cared enough to make a post. And to say you don't want to you don't want to develop the feels for the game and there's not enough characters, that you can comment on your own post. There's a lot of people that do that. So I'm not just going to give Zelda Hunter a get out of jail free card for that. If they want to pretend like, oh, they're kind of just nonchalant about it. Oh, I'm just not going to say all of that, but whatever. Not many people are very articulate. Not many people are able to completely express things in a manner that are understandable. It's hard. It's hard to be a good orator. It's hard to be a good writer. It's hard to do any of that. It's hard to develop those skills, and people still need to communicate. And so, like, if we want to judge Zelda Hunter, we can judge any YouTube commenter. We can judge any, like, I mean, there's plenty of content creators that just say crap in their videos. You know, they just say shit. They don't know what they're talking about, or maybe they misremember things. I mean, that's just the way it goes. There are plenty of people most of these people are just normal ass people. They just happen to have a higher Twitter following than someone else, or a subscriber count, or whatever. It doesn't make them any more of an authority figure or a better speaker or writer. Can I say I like the world's grind of decos and hero stones more than Wild's in-game chase? Yes, you can. But
miss me with that.
Sorry, Jesse, you're actually wrong. You're actually wrong. And you know what? Actually, real quick, yeah, you're wrong in that the grind for decos and hero stones was an actual chasing dragons moment. That shit was so terrible. You could put so much time into it, and
exactly. I was thinking,
but I will concede this. At least you had more than just tempered Arkfeld to fight. In World's Grind. I will concede that, Jesse. So
I disagree with that like crazy. This sentiment of World's and quote unquote endgame, but I can see why people like it, because there's a carrot there, right, that they're chasing, and it seems like that's so
well.
Really
actually,
important.
I don't know. This person says Wild's endgame chase is. They said they like the decos and hero stones. I think that they're still chasing Wild's endgame, right? Like,
but the thing is, I think because Wild showers you with rewards, right, compared to other games.
Yeah,
I think,
but
in my opinion,
the decorations are kind of generous for like the static decos. Like if you need max might decos or expert or attack decos or crit boost decos, that's fine. But sometimes some of them are elusive. It took me 100 hours to get my first Iron Wall 3. And I still have yet to get an Offensive Guard 3 Iron Wall split deco. I have yet to get one. That's the main thing I need right now. And so like there are, so like at this point, I still have things that I need to work on and still need to work towards in order to even like completely max out the builds that I want. The problem is
because you also play multiple weapons, right?
I do play multiple weapons, and you know what? I think a lot of people, a lot of their problem is they only play one weapon, so it's easy to get bored with stuff like that. But we can't tell exactly what Jesse means here, right? Because they're talking about the grind and they're talking about the chase. I will concede this: World is superior in one single facet as far as indie game goes, and that's because you could fight Tempered Teo, you could fight Tempered Nergigante, and you could fight Tempered Valhazak. And technically, in Wilds, you can fight Tempered, you can fight 5 different monsters. But you're only going to consistently find rewards for just one, and that's Tempered Arkfeld. So it's kind of, they need to figure that out. They need to fix that.
I noticed that whenever people, when you mentioned that and on like videos as well about Arkfeld being like the main thing in the end game, I'm like looking for him because he doesn't appear for me as much.
You just got there. You just got there, brother.
Well, I mean, I've been there. I'm like, I'm HR 100, and you know, it's not that high, of course.
Now? How are you not running into more arc builds?
That's what I mean. Like, I'm finding freaking tempered Raidao, tempered Uduna, tempered this, and I was like, oh damn, this is nice.
You are a rarity, my friend. And typically, even if you run into the tempered Raidao or tempered Uduna and stuff, the rewards are still not going to be as beefy as a tempered Arcveld or a regular Arcveld even.
Really? Why?
They're just not. For some reason, the loot
quantity,
pool,
you mean?
Yeah, well, no. If you're looking for decos or Ardian parts, they're both weighted way more heavily to be on the higher end whenever you're fighting Arcvelds and tempered Arcvelds. For some reason, I'm not sure why they have that. Even like regular Arcvelds, you can get 6 armor decos and 3 weapon decos, or vice versa, and stuff like that with just a regular Arcveld. You'd be pressed to get like 3 Ardian parts and 1 armor deco with like a Uthduna or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the rewards are just very incongruent.
Maybe because it's the only 8-star or like higher than everything else.
Well, yeah. So like regular Arcveld is a 7-star, just like all the tempered like Gore, tempered Uthduna, and all them. But tempered Arcveld is the only 8-star, which is why its loot pool is probably way better. So once they figure that stuff out, but you know, right now we're getting into our own personal gripes with it, and I will say it's not just wasted space for this video, because we're trying to explain why some of these people are saying the things that they are about Monster Hunter Wilds. There are problems. There are things to critique. You know, merely coming at the defense of the game just because you haven't finished the story, or just because you are completely satisfied with you know, every facet of the grind, in comparison to the other games, there are things that devs should have learned from or should have made better, that a lot of things they just didn't. They either have like problems that are similar or some problems that are worse. You know, there are things to criticize. We're not giving Zelda Hunter a complete cop-out, because posting something like that and then just not elaborating whatsoever, I'm just gonna say maybe they were just sick of it and they didn't want to elaborate and they didn't want to engage anymore. Though, judging by some of these comments and stuff, I don't know. I'm just trying to give them some goodwill. I don't think they're a bad person. I think that maybe they're just a bad communicator, as far as like communicating in mass or dealing with backlash. Not everyone's graceful when dealing with backlash. You know, I mean, how many Twitter followers do they have? Zelda Hunter has 5,132 followers.
And how many tweets? Oh my freaking god.
Dude, 23.3k posts. Okay.
I might be a little bit more. I'm a little bit harsher, because if you're that long on Twitter, you should be able to deal with that.
Well, the thing is, like, that's something it's also something like personality, right? So like, there's a lot of people that can't deal with backlash very well. And you'll get backlash for anything, right?
Hell yeah.
I mean, even our last video, the tier list video.
Oh yeah.
Even our jokes, there were people that were so mad about certain things.
I mean, I know I'm probably going to say things in this video that people are not going to like.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, though. Like, you're never going to be able to appease everyone. So, if you're in that case, you need to be willing and able to take some forms of backlash. For me, I like to have some fun with it a little bit. I tell people I'm going to put them in a headlock, and you know, I'm a jokester. I like. I messed with one guy who like accused me of never playing like any games that weren't before World, and like I was like, I don't know where he got this info from. So I was like, you don't play Monster Hunter games, you play Dauntless only. and like, I don't know if he took me serious or not, but then like he goes, oh, you liked your own, because someone had liked my my comment, and he goes, you liked your own comment, you're even more pathetic. It was the Kuda video, the unhinged Monster Hunter Wilds critique. He was like, you're more of a loser than this guy. And I was like, so in response, I liked his comment, and then I liked my own comment. And then I said, hey, you liked your comment too. We're comment like, we like our own comment. We're like comment brothers. And then this guy was so mad about that. he took a screenshot of that just to prove that he didn't like his own comment, and he posted it on his channel. And then he told me, he said, by the way, I posted this on my channel. Do you always gaslight your viewers? And I was like, dude, come on, man.
Why is he so upset?
I was like, dude, come on, have a sense of humor. I'm just trying to. I thought the Dauntless thing was would have given it away. Like, that was absurd. I was like, you accused me of something, I accused you of something. Like, that was absurd. It turns out he was like trying to do some kind of joke, like with Elite Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter elitism. Like, oh, I bet you didn't play anything in the world. I just don't think he worded it very well. Or, you know, maybe like that, or maybe he was just having a bad day or an off day. I don't know.
Well, was there a happy ending, or?
I mean, I told him I got to go to work. He did say I was unemployed, which I thought was kind of funny. It made me chuckle. I told him I had to go back to work, but I was like, no hate to you, man. I wish you the best. I'm not gonna be able to get back to your comment though. And he didn't respond back, but I don't think homie was like, I think he was legitimately misunderstanding. And I think he tried to joke, but it didn't come across as a joke. And I think I tried to joke, and it didn't come across as a joke. But that's the thing. Like, that's what you're going to deal with on the internet. You know, you're going to deal with just
text.
Yeah, you're going to deal with stuff like that. And like, there's this text right here. This is harsh. This is harsh to read. If you like Wilds, if you haven't even finished the game and you're a big fan of it right now, if you just like Monster Hunter in general, you have no idea who Zelda Hunter is. This seems harsh. This seems incendiary. Like,
funnily enough, like, the thing is, I like Wilds like a lot. I know I'm gonna be putting thousands of hours into it, but I get their criticism.
Yeah.
I don't agree with some of it, but I can see where why.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree that World had more fun and purpose. I don't agree that there's not a meaningful incentive to keep playing. I don't agree that the content isn't super inspired. I think there are aspects of it that do make it weak, but I think that I don't think that any Monster Hunter endgame has ever been really good. I'm just gonna be outright and say it. Like Iceborne, Rise, Sunbreak, World, Wilds. I don't think the DLC for Wilds will be any different. I don't think GUs and gens are extremely strong, and I don't think 4Us is extremely strong. Like endgame didn't start until 4. Right? I don't think any of them are, and that's because I don't think they designed Monster Hunter to completely only highlight endgame. I think that they want the entire journey to be the whole experience, and that endgame is just kind of there to sweeten the deal. I don't think that's their priority, and that's why it seems so like an afterthought in a lot of ways. And I guess you could also make the argument of, you know, we talked about endgame in the Monster Hunter journalist video where the guy was like glazing guiding lands so much. And you know, what exactly is endgame? You know, I just said I don't think any Monster Hunter's endgame is good. People are going to be like, well, what do you mean by that? I have plenty of fun fighting the tempered monsters in World. I have plenty of fun fighting, getting my gems or my decos, building my decos in Rise and Sunbreak. You know, when you really think about it, anything post-story could be classified as end game. So even me saying that could cause controversy. What I mean by that, I'm going to go ahead and just give my operational definition so you don't have to assume. What I mean by that are specifically end-game centric systems such as guiding lands, anomaly system, the Apex monsters from base Rise, the deviant quests from Gen and GU. I think that was a weird inflated system. 228 quests that you have to do solo, that's a bit gratuitous. And not solo, but you have to host. Like if someone else were to post them, they wouldn't count for you.
So if you were playing in a group, you had to do it 4 times.
Yeah.
Everything. So have fun with that. 140
guild quest levels and for you with an RNG based system on getting like really good weapons. Not necessarily similar to, not completely similar to Wild's Ardian system, but in a way it's in the same like family. I think that all of these in-game systems, most of the time when people talk about what they love about these games. And when people pick like the favorite aspects about these games, they don't have these in mind completely. Now, I will give it this. Sunbreak's anomaly system and special investigation system, it had problems, but I think it's my favorite part of the game.
Same.
GU, the deviant quests were extraordinarily fun. Not my favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
And
And hyper monsters, could be classified as endgames kind of, because you only get to fight them at the end.
well, not actually.
Well, all throughout mastering, right? G rank, I mean, sorry.
Nope, there's high rank hyper monsters.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
And they are in tandem with like the actual quests, and they're kind of built into the progression like that. So like for example, I'm pulling this out of my ass, by the way, so if I get this wrong, please don't be in the comments be like, actually you got the star wrong. HR like 5 Nursilla, for example, is going to be 5-star, or HR 5-star Nursilla is going to be regular, but then they're going to put her hyper in HR 6-star, for example, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like the hyper monsters, you could say it's a part of the end game, just because it's a little bit different. But GU is a bit more of that classic Monster Hunter style of you're just going about hunting things. The deviant quests technically you could do throughout the game as well, but you really don't want to do them until you pass the end game, building your sets and everything. Those monsters will kick your ass unless you don't. Unless you do that. So like and even like in this conversation, we're having trouble defining it and keeping it consistent. End game is not consistent in Monster Hunter. It's not. And it really isn't. And so the fact of the matter is, maybe whenever Zelda Hunter is talking about the content is too weak, maybe they're not necessarily talking about the end game loop. Maybe they're talking about the fact that the story's only in low rank. Maybe they want the story to go through low rank and high rank. Even though I think Wilds did a good job pacing out the story, even if it was just in low rank. I do think they did a good job with that. Maybe they want more optional quests. Maybe they want things like rainbow pigment to shoot for in Monster Hunter World. Maybe they want things like that. They didn't say anything like that.
Yeah,
My voice
so we
cracked.
kind of have to just assume.
Yeah, they didn't say anything like that. So we just have to assume. We have to assume the best. And too many people assume the worst. And also too many people just go for the throat, dude. Like, why? What? Why are you people mad about this? I agree to an extent. See, another like really vague thing. Like you agree to an extent.
Fair,
how do you agree to something so vague? You have
people go for the throat because that Zelda Hunter with that post went for Wild's throat, I guess, in a way, right?
True. People what? Yeah, the kick in the hornet's nest. That I get that. That I get that. Okay. Oh, we got one. People like to white knight and say dumb shit about your time played, like a great game has no issues with burning hours away. That's why the game is great. Monsterhunterwilds is far too easy with no in-game chase meaningful loop to grind. I don't know what they mean by in-game chase and meaningful loop to grind, because there is just as much as like what existed in base world. Or any Monster Hunter for that matter. Like you still have to set build, you still have to make things, you still have like in earlier Monster Hunters you would have to get charms, you had to do RNG charms.
I was gonna say I think the reason why people say that, because that's not the only comment that says this, is because the RNG in World was dog shit for everything, right? For if you wanted, like there were so many decos that were so rare. I'm talking getting just one attack, like level 1 deco. Well, there were not level 2s.
Well, I mean, sure. I hate to cut you off, but it's not saying we're not going Goomba fallacy and saying these people are the same people. But on the other side of that argument, there are people that argue that that's why World's in-game system was absolutely garbage. Like the base in-game system was an empty loop of just Skinner box RNG with no heart and soul in it. And like like these people, there are some people that love chasing the carrot. There are some people that don't want to have to deal with wasting their time just over and over again, hunting the same things over and over again without seeing a reward or not being guaranteed a reward. And while these people may be two different people, This argument existed for base Rise as well. People, RNG charms versus RNG decos. For some reason, RNG charms was too much RNG, even though you would only be missing like a skill or two with if you didn't have a great roll, if you just had decent rolls. Whereas in World, you could be potentially missing multiple attack decos, multiple expert decos, multiple whatever decos, multiple. I don't even know. The thing is that's the problem with these kinds of arguments is you have people on both sides that love or hate something. One man's trash is another man's treasure, and they're at each other's throats. Yeah. And the funny thing is the veterans, the 3,000 hour people, they exist on both sides of the spectrum, and they'll call each other tourists sometimes, and that's funny as fuck. And so this is
like me. Like, I don't agree with this at all. I have thousands of hours in all the other games, and I hated the freaking RNG, like the bad RNG, and I actually like this because I just get all the stuff I want, and then I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I enjoy getting rewards and and have it like a quote unquote incentive or like a carrot, whatever. But mainly the gameplay is just fun. I just want to have fun playing,
Yeah.
And I think this is better for me than being too like frustrated that I'm not getting something I want.
Yeah.
Because I spent 200 hours per attack deco in base world. I freaking every 200 hours I would get one, and in 1,000 hours I had 5. That's insane. That is nuts.
Yeah.
Like, and decos there were so integral to your builds. Which is why it was so annoying when you wouldn't get them. Which in turn I didn't mind base Rise's RNG because you could make all the decos, you could get all the skills that you needed, and you can just put the cherry on top of the charm.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though. It was simultaneously not enough of a carrot, but too much of a carrot for a lot of people. Let's see. Let's look at some of the things that were possibly highlighted. I kind of skimmed over her page. Okay, actually, here's some. Here's a little bit of their
context.
Yeah, earlier feelings on Wilds, it seems. After playing Monsterhunterwilds for 90 plus hours, overall it's an incredibly fun Monster Hunter game with incredible gameplay, but this one feels weirdly incomplete. Something is missing. For me, the game has stopped after finishing the story quests, and it becomes mindless farming with no goal in mind. Okay. So, story ends at low rank. Unless they're also talking about the very light story elements that exist in high rank. There's very, very light story elements. Something is missing. Well, even then, in let's see, base world, after you beat the story, you get the tempered quests, like to unlock the different tiers of tempered monsters. So like the double tempered Kirin, tempered basil, things like that. Maybe they want something like that instead of just having tempered introduced alongside the story. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. I don't even know how I could word this out or what even caused this feeling. But it's not even 100 hours in. I've seen everything so rapidly and effortlessly, and the end game is somewhat close to non-existent. Something's missing. I don't know how I feel about all that. And the Ardian in-game weapons, no thanks. It's reused, almost overdone, it's bland, I ain't touching that shit until weapon layers are a thing. I don't know why they resort to designing such in-game content every time. They gotta stop with that or make it more exciting. Okay, so if they're really not touching Ardian weapons, they're missing half of the end game. Which is funny, because they said the end game is somewhat close to non-existent. It's no more non-existent than base worlds, as we already talked about.
It's non-existent to them because they're completely disregarding it. So, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I can't say. I hate things like this. Like, it feels incomplete. Something is missing. I hate this weird feeling. There's nothing like actually substantial here. Like they're saying it's word salad. It's really how can you maybe if you gave like details, that would be a little better. But it's not really. Oh, this is what I was talking about, by the way, where like they comment on their own post.
Yeah, exactly, to explain more. Yeah,
and the thing, they did that here. They did that here.
Yeah, and the thing is, I agree with the layers not being there. I really don't like that. I hate that. It's a stupid decision in my opinion. It makes no sense that they're not there yet, because we have layered armor, but why not layered weapons? Especially when they have such an end game where they not force you, but give you these weapons that are really strong. But they all look kind of goof. I don't like the look of a lot of them. So I'm just gonna also stick. I'm gonna make all of them for all of the weapons, but I'm gonna still use all the other monster weapons as well. But I agree with the layered stuff.
I mean, yeah, there should definitely be layered stuff, but to say that there's no end game,
no, it's there.
When you just choose you don't want to engage with part of it, that is, I'm not gonna say it's disingenuous, but I would say it's intellectually dishonest.
Yeah,
and there's no other way. There's no other way to put that. I'm not gonna say that maliciously. I'm not saying they're meaning to be. But it is intellectually dishonest to say that there's no incentive to play, and there's no end game. There's close to no end game, and that the content is weak and all that. I can't say that's not intellectually dishonest to say that, and while also admitting to not wanting to engage.
And it's not the only end game. Like what about the decos? The decos are there. We have weapon and armor decos now.
Well, maybe they're saying it's close to non-existent because it's just decos.
But what about base world? It was also just decos. The stream stones were...
The stream stones were also... It was basically just Ardian parts also.
Well, and also the boots were very, very weak. Except for...
Well, you had health augment.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the only thing what people care about.
Yeah, you had health
augment. So I don't want to hear it.
But
I'm actually pretty triggered by that because I hated that shit. Anyways.
Well, that's the whole thing, like, right?
Yeah. I
just don't think this person's being articulate. I think that there is more under the hood, but what they're saying, they're just not very good at arguing. Maybe they know that, and that's why they didn't expand on the major post. Who knows? We'll see what other people are saying and see what this person endorses, and maybe that will inform us a little bit. So OEG, Heriodox, people just dunking, not knowing that Zelda Hunter was supporting the Monster Hunter community for ages. They were playing old titles when the player base was minimum, and probably will be playing Wilds long after everyone moves on. This is a real hunter who wanted to talk about their experience. I did see where Zelda Hunter mentioned that they would still put 1,000 hours into Wild.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon. If you're a Monster Hunter super fan, even in the games that they're not your most favorite, you might put 1,000 hours in just because that's the only types of games you play, or maybe that's the only game you play, or the only series you really play. So that's not really hard to understand. I do think that using the people dunking on them, even though they were an old guard, supporting the Monster Hunter community, that's not a very good defense. Just because you were an old fan doesn't mean you can just automatically have an elevated opinion.
Yeah. That is true.
The games have changed. Old Jin no longer exists. It has been 7 years. All these old Jin people, old Jin was like this, old Monster Hunter was like this. When people, say an opinion about Monster Hunter, they're like, it's not like that. It was different. Yeah, it was different. But ever since World, which had a completely different design philosophy, a completely different approach, and a completely different reason for existing. We're talking a game series that was originally created to be popular amongst, let's see, actually I've got this piece of an article up just in case this came up. While it has found an audience in North America, Monster Hunter hasn't reached the same heights in popularity as Japan. Why do you think this is? Japan is a country made up of small islands, and this gives us an environment wherein people tend to gather rather closely thanks to the well-developed public transportation system we have with our train and bus lines. Therefore, it's easy for word of mouth to spread while people are playing together via ad hoc connection on their portable gaming devices. I think the environment was really well suited for building the fan base we now enjoy and for encouraging people to play with one another. In the US, the environment and culture may not be as well suited to this type of play, and that has led to it not being quite as popular yet. That said, we are aware of a growing multitude of really strong and tight-knit communities that have sprung up in the States, and we know that they hold their own events on the local level. We treasure these dedicated communities, and I sincerely hope that these veterans will usher in a new group of fans to enjoy Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. This interview was from 2015. This was celebrating 10 years of Monster Hunter with Ryozo. This is a Game Informer magazine. So Monster Hunter was around the US. It just never gained any major traction. I've also got another interview. This one is Japan Forward, and it's from September 26, 2024. And I knew the concept of what, the difference between Monster Hunter and old gen versus new gen would come up. Let's see how Monster Hunter became Capcom's most popular series. So, the genre first gained popularity in Japan. It has since captivated players worldwide. So they talk about a little bit of like the old Monster Hunter stuff. For years, the series remained largely Japan-centric, but this changed dramatically in 2018 when Monster Hunter World became a global phenomenon. 5 million copies sold in 3 days. Monster Hunter World marked the series' return to home consoles after a 9-year hiatus. It quickly shipped over 5 million copies worldwide within just 3 days of its release. The addition of a PC version further propelled its success, with total sales surpassing 20 million copies, making it Capcom's best-selling title to date. We aimed to create a Monster Hunter game that could compete globally by leveraging the latest technology of the time, Tsujimoto explained. Now, keep this in mind. In this interview, Ryozo doesn't hit on end game. He doesn't hit on anything but well, I'll let his words speak on it.
Well, I was gonna say, because Endgame, he's trying to talk broadly, right, more generally.
Well, that's the whole thing. You want to appeal to a massive amount of people,
exactly,
and that is the goal. That is Ryozo's end game. That is Capcom's end game, to hit as many people as possible. So to do that, we aim to create a Monster Hunter game that could compete globally. The game boasted cutting-edge visuals, including 4K resolution and high dynamic range for enhanced lighting effects, ensuring top-notch quality. To make the game more accessible for newcomers, Capcom conducted extensive overseas testing and introduced user-friendly features, such as displaying damage numbers when monsters are hit. Immersive design was also a critical focus for the development team. We paid attention to details, such as how a monster's skeletal structure would influence its movements and which monster would be dominant in a specific ecosystem. The meticulous attention to detail contributed to a surge of international players, expanding the series' core value of fostering communication through gameplay to a global audience. The next installment, so they start talking about Monster Hunter Wilds, but notice how the main things he's hitting, it's cutting-edge visuals, it's monster design, and that it's a realistic looking and monster that could really live in a specific ecosystem. This kind of attention to detail. Nothing about the fights. Maybe you could argue that part of it is like accessibility for newcomers, user-friendly features such as displaying damage numbers. That's a weird, that's the only thing they mentioned from that one, so that's kind of weird. But nothing about like the overall fights, nothing about progression and difficulty, nothing about skill balance and weapon balance, nothing about like any of these other things that a lot of people take very seriously, especially hardcore Monster Hunter fans. No, it is, does this monster seem cool? Does it seem believable? Are the graphics cutting edge? Are the ecosystems realistic? These are the things that will apply to a global audience. And this interview from 2024, this is what Ryozo believes is why Monster Hunter World was so successful. And even, notice how Rise isn't even mentioned. Rise didn't sell bad. It didn't sell...
It's the second best-selling Capcom game.
It's the second best-selling Capcom game, but World literally sold, if I'm not mistaken, right now base Rise is sitting at 16 million sales. World, in total, including the Iceborne World Edition, sold 28 million copies. So they're
a little bit less than double, but almost.
Their big money is in visuals, and it's in realistic maps. And guess what they fucking did in this game? They focused hard on the maps and the visuals. And my own personal Monster Hunter Wilds review is going to be coming out at some point. And funnily enough, even though he didn't expand on it too much, I've got a video by Monster Hunter we're going to be looking at. MAH, Monster Hunter. And he kind of touches on the direction of like Tokuda and mainline Monster Hunter. But these are the things that they care about right now. And maybe people like Zelda Hunter and, you know, any other, like, whatever, maybe they care about that. You know, they care about the ecosystem less. Who knows?
Wait, Zelda Hunter made a follow-up tweet right below that, right? I think. Down there.
Well, this is a response to another person.
I said my last tweet seems to have
this was a response to a person that looks like they commented on this one.
Oh.
Back to this one though. Yeah, the titles, the Monster Hunter games are not made with the same philosophy in mind. The games are quite literally changed. It's the same genre, but
and fundamentally it's still the same.
If in a lot of ways, it's the same in that Call of Duty and Battlefield are the same genre. But they have different design philosophies and different mechanics focus. They're not the same type of game, and there's people that prefer Battlefield and there's people that prefer Call of Duty. It's the same as in, technically, Souls games share a lot in common with Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, with the target cam and the rolling. But they're completely different design philosophies made for different types of people, made for different times. These games change. Old World doesn't exist as like the Old World fans would want, and it has been that way for 7 years. And so the validity behind it, it's not as hefty as you think. Just because you've been around for longer doesn't mean that your opinions are like on the pedestal, perfect, and more valuable. You have to still be weighed on the marketplace of ideas, just like anybody else. So I back to this. I don't like that was this guy's defense. He probably should have went a different route with it. This one, people are focusing on the days more than your points, but you have good points. There's a reason why streamers stopped playing this. It doesn't have the content the others have. Even Maximilian Dude basically started enjoying GU more. Something is missing. Max isn't a Monster Hunter guy. Max is a variety gamer. He's not going to stick around and just farm end game over and over and over again whenever he has a lot of other things to go on, especially whenever he started GU. I don't think this is the best example. Let's see though. This is a big wall of text. Aside from using GU as an example, which being an expansion is kind of silly, I think the streamer point is kind of odd because it's not like this also didn't happen in 5th gen. Okay, actually this person's going kind of hard. Like Monster Hunter is just known to drop off quick from my experience. To be honest, I think the whole convo about Wilds content or content in Monster Hunter in general is more complex than people think it is. Like this was said about World, about Rise, about Try, about Portable Third, about Monster Hunter Freedom 2. Just from the top of my head, from my experience and from friends of mine. So it feels like we're reaching a point where this topic just lost all the worth of discussing. Because it basically boils down to personal opinion. Like there are plenty of people who still haven't beat the game since release. They can only play the game a couple hours a day, maybe due to having other priorities, which will consequently take them longer to reach the end of HR. So when looking at those cases, does what do we like deduce? Is Wilds a more complete game then? Sorry about the wall of text, but this topic is genuinely way harder to discuss and not as surface level as some people think it is. And it's just kind of tiring me because it feels like half the people don't even know what they're talking about. Duppy went hard right there. This is the best thing we've read all day.
Yeah.
This is the best thing we've read all day.
Damn.
Let's see.
And that's the thing, like the Zelda Hunter makes it seem like the base games of the previous 2 games were better, which...
Well, she didn't even mention Rise.
That's
big
well,
L.
there you go.
Big L, but
that's what I mean. Which, like, I don't know. That's why I'm always looking at those people funny. Because base world, man, no, just no.
Yeah, I mean, like even like base Rise. The only difference between that, well, like here's the thing. The only difference between base Rise and games that were before 4 was literally just you could earn charms from the fights themselves.
Yeah, and now you just in Rise
in Rise you only could meld them, but it was still the same end game.
Yeah, exactly.
It was you could craft echoes, and you had to earn charms through the fight. So it's so goofy. It's so goofy to be like, oh, I don't like that end game. It's just not very good. And then be like, oh, but I loved this game way more than I like Wilds.
Yeah.
Oh, I have purpose and meaning. it's cheesy, and I think Duppy hits it hard here. It's not simple. There's so much difference between each of these games, and this happens almost every single title where conversations like this occur. Let's see. People are going away from new style Monster Hunter to old style Monster Hunter. Okay, that's just because GU's like the filler game. GU's what did we do before Rise came out? We played GU. What did we do after Rise and Sunbreak, waiting for Wilds to come out? We played GU.
Also, what do we do while waiting for Sunbreak?
We played GU
as well.
So like it's like. It's just the game you bite into whenever you're waiting on the other game stuff.
Exactly.
Bro. I hopped on GU last week. I hopped on GU for a little bit. So like it's just I don't know, man.
Wait, the next comment is good too. Did you play Monster Hunter Cross on release?
Endless and mindlessly easy deviant ticket farms until they released Hyper Silverlos and other difficult Hypermons. If you'd like to compare Wilds, then compare it to base game, not the ultimate G-rank version.
Exactly.
Okay. I do this because I think people don't get the point. But Monster Hunter Cross wasn't missing the Gathering Hub, arena quests, armor skills randomly not going high enough in base game.
Wait, what? What does he mean by that?
I don't know. I think I don't know actually. The Gathering Hub being gone is goofy. We'll hit on that later. Arena quests, I don't fucking care. but
well, we have an arena when we can do hunts in it. So what else do you want?
No, he's talking about arena specific, like with the shitty builds that they put in pre-built.
Oh god, that was terrible. What the hell?
Some people like them. Some people like them, but I don't know. I think the point is that it's missing features, not necessarily that they're good features, but that they're missing features.
They're missing, but the thing is, they're such a small part of the game. Like, you can't tell me people spend freaking hours on hours in the freaking arena with those shitty builds.
Well, I mean, some people,
maybe they did.
Speedrunners and stuff, they they go for the arena.
These people
I can see where it means.
Yeah.
The common person's not hanging out in the arena for too long.
Yeah.
Armor skill's not randomly going high enough.
I have no idea what that means.
I would imagine maybe he's talking about some of the armor skill setups with some of the armors, where like maybe if an armor prioritizes weakness exploit or something,
it doesn't go to 5. Maybe that's what he means.
Well,
right?
no, most of them go to 5 still, but like maybe they have like max might or something alongside it, and it just doesn't complete it. I don't know. That's what beta sets are for, though. Slot that in, bro. There's.
Yeah.
I don't know. Back out though. My last tweet seems to have created a bit of storm with many missing the point. No further explanation will be given as why I find the game both fun and boring for now. Okay, so they added both fun and boring. They did not say that here. They just said it's too boring. Okay, I do think they were kind of. I think they're kind of farming engagement a little bit. I do. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're rage baiting a little bit for some engagement, that's negative clicks are. That's the name of the game. That's the only way you can really completely grow. If you can spin it in a positive manner, I suppose. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, yeah, and yes, I will be playing more Wilds on my free time. 130 hours ain't enough, and I love Monster Hunter. See, like all these are like wholesome like responses. Monster Hunter tourists don't understand the level of passion some fans have that we would play even the Monster Hunter games we enjoy the least for 1,000 hours without question. We have high standards because Monster Hunter has met them in the past, and we want to continue raising the bar. Monster Hunter has met the standards in the past?
I was about to say, really?
Yeah.
Maybe yours.
Yeah. What games? What games besides like ultimate expansions and stuff, like really fleshing out everything? I mean,
the base games were lacking every time.
Yeah, like under the same conditions of like inspiration, content, like I think the only like from by the same parameters of meaningful incentive and like all these different things by the same parameters, I think the only one that could even somewhat qualify is possibly Monster Hunter 4. Because Monster Hunter 4 released with no need for title updates. It released with guild quests. If I'm not mistaken, it released with guild quests. I think you could only go to like level 100 or something like that. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, feel free to bash my head in the comment section if you want to. But I believe that it released with a in-game loop to a certain degree, and 4 also released with the biggest roster to boot at that time. So there was like a lot of significance. Yeah, 4 had the biggest roster on launch out of the old world games besides Jin. I think Jin is the only one that had more, but Jin is kind of cheating.
Yeah, true.
So like the only one that you could say like base game wise meets these standards is 4 potentially. I guess technically Monster Hunter 1 because there's no other game to compare it to. Maybe I don't know. But by these same parameters that they're judging Wilds, I just don't understand this whole like circle jerking of old world Monster Hunter. I get it. You loved it. I get it. It played an integral part of your life for a little bit. I get it. You got to enjoy this special series before it became special to everyone. But it's not for everyone. There are a lot of people that played old world Monster Hunter that thought it was trash because in a lot of ways there were a lot of things about it that were trash, especially in comparison to a lot of games at the time. There have been a lot of good games that have launched not just from the West but also from the East as well. You know, whether we're talking about story, whether we're talking about mechanics, whether we're talking about combat. I mean, there are people to this day that say Dragon's Dogma 1 has the best action combat out of any other game that's even remotely similar to it. Action combat, period. Not even there's a lot of debate on anything being the best as it is. There's a lot of Monster Hunter fans that played a lot of old world games that Monster Hunter World is their favorite Monster Hunter. There's a lot of old world fans that played a lot of old world games and Monster Hunter Rise is one of their favorites. Not necessarily World, but like World Iceborne, Rise Sunbreak. For some, it's legitimately base World. I know Rurikon is on record saying that base World is his favorite Monster Hunter, period.
Heavy Wings as well.
Heavy Wings as well? Yeah, so, you know, there's, like I said, one man's trash is another man's treasure. There are things about each of these games that people love, and each of these games that people can hate or despise. And maybe you loved things about some of the old world games that are no longer existent. But my problem with this is that what standards are being addressed in posts like this? There are no standards being addressed here. There's just, it's boring. It's nearly perfect, but it's not peak. What does any of this mean? The content is too weak. It's not inspired. What does this mean?
Yeah.
There's no meaningful incentive to keep playing. What does that mean? You know, like there's
Yeah.
no.
And what was the meaningful incentive in the older games for that person? You know, that's what I'm wondering. I want to know.
Yeah. So like, that is the hard thing about conversations like this, because even I know I'm gonna get flamed up for even having the gall to potentially insult and not just fillet old world Monster Hunter. I have the gall to do that. I will insult any Monster Hunter game, including the new gen ones. No game should be lacking in criticism, and even if intentional design is existent for certain games, like for example, like I said, came out in 2014, the way that the combat worked in that game was intentionally designed. Everything about these games was intentional. And it wasn't just limitations on systems. Like any flexing while healing was not a limitation thing. It was because they wanted you to flex while healing. Some people like healing while flexing, some people don't.
I think they did want to make it more difficult to heal, right?
Well, I actually read somewhere where the flexing while healing actually speaks into Japanese theater culture, like ancient theater culture.
Okay, fair enough.
And so it could be a checks and balance system on the healing, but also just kind of like a very Japanese nod towards something that was beloved culturally. It could be double meaning, but well, who knows? You know, they decided to change, everything up. The monsters are still relatively the same speed as they used to be, even in old gen, yet they give us mobile healing. And so maybe that was due to us not having loading zones anymore, because used to, everyone talks about sacred healing, but what about loading zone healing? So another reason why the deviants are goated, by the way, because you had to most of the time fight the EX versions in the arena where you can't get out unless you Farcaster. That stuff was nuts, dude. Arena, I don't care what anybody says, arena fights where the monster can't run away, but also you can't run away, that goes hard. That goes hard.
Yeah.
Especially in old world. Especially. Okay. But back to it. Following my controversial tweet, a number of people have reached out to me to send some support. I appreciate it, though I want to make it very clear. I hope I'm fine. No mental stress, no sorrow, no doubt, no regret. Unfazed to the backlash with no need to prove myself here. So at least they seem to be postulating as if they're doing well. No harm, no foul. Sometimes people just get passionate, they say things, and sometimes they get rage bait. They do some rage baiting. We do have a funny inverse picture. We have this guy going literally 120 hours. Sucks for me to admit, but Monsterhunterwilds is too goated. The gameplay is perfect. It's peak Monster Hunter. The content is too strong and inspired. I've got all the meaningful incentive I need to keep playing. I had less fun and purpose in base, rise, or past games. First off, this is kind of funny. He's doing a little trolling.
And you know what? It might be trolling, but it also might be true for him.
That is true.
And that's the point.
Yeah, that is true. He could be trolling, but he also, I see he's got the 100% guild card nameplate.
So I think he is trolling, but I think also he's telling the truth for him.
Potentially. Let's see. Wait, why are you legit dogging on Zelda for their take? I don't agree with it, and I agree that 130 in that time has been out is crazy, but it's still their opinion, and this just seems like a jab for likes. A shame I started to look at your content, but this has put me off.
Wait, this seems like a jab for likes. What Zelda Hunter did was a jab and Monster Hunter for likes. Seems like so.
Yeah,
What?
I hate this whole argument of people are just doing things for clicks. Yes, everyone is doing things for clicks. It is social media.
Yeah, and why do people get so defensive about it?
I think that so it's that Z-list internet celebrity thing where people will just defend people. Or, the concept of I can punch at something, but you can't address the you can't address it in any way, or else you're being toxic, like the toxic positivity kind of thing. I think that yeah, I don't think this is. I think this is like light ribbing. It's not like he insulted her or like sent a hate brigade. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. I think that his response here, "You'd be too fragile for my community," I think that's for the best. I think that's a little cringy though. And like that with this PvP, like the eyebrow raised. It's a little cringy. It's a little cringy. The undeniably British monster. Okay, it makes sense. He's British. You choose that, innit? Just kidding. But let's see.
Oh, that was not good, man.
a fairly
well, I couldn't do it any better, so.
True. A fairly disappointing response from a creator who I thought had more of an open-minded approach to people's criticism and or opinion, but instead resorted to act like the rest for the sake of engagement, certainly devaluing the opinion of a hard fan while missing their point. What point did you make? What point did you make with your post? You didn't make a point. That is the point. You were
because he did the same thing as Zelda Hunter did. He did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Okay, that's goofy. That and
yeah,
to
see, it gets defensive.
Like,
why?
Yeah, that's for the sake of engagement. You did that for the sake of engagement. What are you talking about? That's okay. This is goofy. This is actually goofy. But maybe like there's a friendship that we don't know about, and maybe that exists.
Friendship between who?
These two, Twas by Design, Zelda Hunter. Maybe Twas by Design was taking it. Maybe there's some bad blood that we don't know, and maybe I'm not going to completely dismiss Zelda Hunter for that reason. Maybe this person has harassed them in the past. We don't know. I mean, with "You'd be too fragile for my community." They probably do a little trolling.
But this was very light troll. Like there was no attack. It was he just did the same thing back.
Well, yeah, it's light, but that's the whole point of passive aggressiveness, right? Like it seems light, but there's something else under there. But you have plausible deniability.
Let's see. It's right there, maybe.
You're having a bit of fun is fine. I get it. It's Twitter. Though I wished a creator in our Monster Hunter community, when presented to a point of view they don't quite understand, then they'd seek genuine, open conversation and dialogue. Common ground and understanding, not agreements.
Wait. Did he just like straight up say he's not going to elaborate further? Zelda Hunter in every post or every comment? So
Zelda Hunter did say they weren't going to elaborate and they weren't going to do that. Even in posts, like probably, this is 2 days after.
Yeah, so what the fuck are they on about? That's just annoying now.
That is, I will admit that's kind of annoying, but
yeah, like what? Oh man.
Maybe. Yeah, Zelda Hunter, you probably don't need to just constantly say you're not going to elaborate and like you're being vague on purpose and you don't actually expand if you're seeking like to have people understand you. That's and you may have misunderstood this guy, so let's see.
Yeah.
We're having a dialogue right here. So he immediately gets to the task. He addresses what she says.
Yeah, let's see.
I personally think you pulled the proverbial trigger too early on Wilds. You've got your reasons for being bored and that's fine, but for me, I cannot relate. But realistically, based on your opinion, would it not have been a God dang.
Would it not have been best?
Would it have not been best? Best to have a little break and come back before making too rash a judgment. We even have an update in just a couple of weeks. Between now and then there's layered armors, guild card, rare pets, social elements, armor, weapons, resources, and everything else to gather in preparation. I would like to express that I hold no hate, resentment, or dislike toward you, and my post was simply there to express my own viewpoint, and you gave me an avenue that I found humorous. So, yeah, a little light ribbing. He was expressing his own viewpoint. Maybe he's being a little passive-aggressive, sure. I know all too well burnout, and based on what I've read, it does seem like you're experiencing some. That being said, I wouldn't tell you what to do. Continue playing or don't. It's up to you. Either way, I'm loving Wilds, and I think it holds itself up there with some of my favorite launches in the franchise. Much love and no hard feelings. Hey, fair to Twas by Design. Let's see.
Zelda Hunter. Good, yeah.
I like this text. I appreciate it. Very quickly, the essence of my point comes from the long history I have with the series. 130 hours within a week or a month is enough for me to have a definite opinion on the quality of the content provided by Wilds. that I find good but weak, but I will have an opportunity to further explain with proper examples in due time, perhaps. Okay, she's right. 130 hours is plenty of time to get the breadth of a base game in Monster Hunter. Maybe it's not enough time to master every weapon, but you don't have to master every weapon to enjoy Monster Hunter for what it is. In fact, very seldomly do I even come across a lot of people that go about trying to master every weapon. You know, and very rarely do I ever meet people that play as many weapons as you or I do. So there are, you know, that checks out. Still a little vague. I find it good but weak. Still vague. But I will have an opportunity to further explain with proper examples in due time, perhaps.
See, you know, my issue is I wouldn't have an issue with what Zelda Hunter just said, but if Shay, whatever, what the fuck, if she didn't say that, you know, the other games before that did a better job, because they didn't. So I want to know where this is coming from. This is my whole issue with it.
Yeah, it's almost like if you don't want to expand on it and you just want to like garner like a look at your opinion, like you're talking to the wall, you shouldn't post it on social media where it's going to be undergoing scrutiny, because people are going to disagree with you and they're going to have better arguments than you, especially if you have no argument whatsoever, which you don't. And so unless my general point of view is you shouldn't post anything that you aren't ready to defend. And
I mean, I think you can, but then you can't complain about the backlash.
You're right. You can most definitely post something that you're unable to defend, but it is.
You can't complain then afterwards about the backlash.
You can't like you can't be upset with people for trying to poke fun at you.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of wild positivity in here, so that's keep base rise out your mouth. Yeah, leave base rise alone.
That's pretty funny.
That's really funny. Okay, yeah, a little light ribbing. Like at least it ended on a good note.
Yeah.
You know,
and I'm very curious how Zelda Hunter is going to elaborate. I just want to see it now.
Well, that's if they ever elaborate, you know. So
if they do, well, maybe we can do a follow-up video. You know.
Yeah.
If they can redeem themselves. That would be nice to see.
I thought I would have to pull out Lou Tyrannus's MHGU's the single most overrated Monster Hunter game ever. He posted in March 15th, but also there's some funny banter in here. He's a 4U glazer naturally, like most old worldians. There's people like joking about blocking him and stuff, and like people tearing into him for this one. It's kind of funny.
Well, are they joking?
Well, maybe some of them. Maybe some of them are being real.
Yeah.
There's some people that agree with him. I think this one's funny. I hated Jesus because he's on that tree. Shut up. But yeah, like, you know, to some people, GU is like peak. To some people, like Lou Tyrannus, it's not. And you know, it's just the way it goes. They'll try to cancel me for this, but I'm sure the real ones know I'm right. That's funny.
That's kind of funny.
Actually, you know what? While we're on the concept of vague criticism, let's see what Lou Tyrannus says. Base Generations is genuinely my least favorite Monster Hunter game, lol. I don't like it when Monster Hunter games put content above their substance. It feels like the Marvel movies of Monster Hunter games. No hate to people who like it. Keep enjoying it. That shit just ain't for me. Okay, first thing I don't like about that, he says MHGU. Why is he talking about Base Generations, especially whenever Mufa here is talking about GU? I think that's a cop-out. But you can't expect everyone to be very good at debate. I also think the concept of content above their substance, that's weird. What substance existed in Monster Hunter?
I was gonna say
the stories were never considered very good. Like there's so many. The main things Monster Hunter has been known for has been its rosters and fights, and its combat experience. In fact, Mufa here, what substance is it lacking? You're getting the same amount of substance as you get from almost every other Monster Hunter. Let's not pretend like Gen 1 through 4 has many differences in the amount of substance per game. Eat. Mufa does text to speech, so you'll see you'll see things like this occasionally. Just weird typos. Eat are uniquely different in their own little way. The lack of a coherent narrative and theme because the theme is Monster Hunter is cool. The way that the content clashes with each other and isn't fleshed out because there's so much. The way that old Monster Hunter mechanics like pickaxes and bug nets are still there but make no sense.
What do you mean? What does he mean to make no sense? How did they ever make sense?
I don't know.
Or how does the content clash?
I think he talks about it here. I didn't say it doesn't have one. It doesn't have a coherent one. There's 4 mostly unrelated villages full of characters that have little reason to be there beyond nostalgia. So he's talking about how like all the major players in Monster Hunter show up in GU for the most part. Monsters that just show up, Gormagala, have no weight, like the Frenzy Virus.
Okay.
That is, I mean, if you care about like just complete story implications and lore, sure. And that's another thing, right? Like some people do care about that a lot more. Like to some people, GU is the best because it's an all-you-can-eat buffet where you get to experience a highlight reel, a Hall of Fame reel of monsters across the series that maybe you've never experienced before. Lou Tyrannus, if I'm not mistaken, Dose is his favorite Monster Hunter game. Lou Tyrannus has experienced a lot of old world games. And so him playing GU, it's not as special to him to be able to fight regular Fatalis and Crimson Fatalis and White Fatalis. He's already done that in other games. You know what I mean? So I can see where Lou Tyrannus maybe doesn't care as much because there's no story implications with a lot of this shit. It's just there. And he's already experienced these fights in other avenues where they actually had story implications potentially. So it's a little less impactful for him. Now, I know about Lou Tyrannus a little bit because I had to do some digging into some of these people back whenever I made my Hunters Awards video. So me being able to give that context is important for understanding why maybe he's saying some of the things he is. Because to someone like us or to someone outside of the circle, they just wouldn't get it. What do you mean it's theming and story is weak or doesn't have substance? I thought every Monster Hunter game story was ass. You know what I mean? I thought the story was garbage in every Monster Hunter game. I mean, it's not Red Dead 2. It's not Metal Gear Solid. It's not Legend of Zelda. You know?
I never thought it was garbage. I thought it was just there. It was mid. It was not bad. It was not good. It was just there. It did its purpose for me.
I mean, if the story is a vehicle to take you from fight to fight, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. But
like as a whole narrative, it's just kind of forgettable.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but for me, a bad story almost stays in your mind because it's so bad.
I don't know.
And the writing is terrible and stuff, but Monster Hunter was just okay.
I'm gonna be real with you, brother. I don't remember hardly any of the intricacies of Monster Hunter World story.
Well, I mean, the overarching theme was just, Elder's Crossing, blah, blah, blah.
Well, like, it was like, or Magdaros is crossing, we're gonna stop him. And then it turns out, like, they were going to, wherever to die, and so that Xenogear could harvest the bioenergy because he was calling him. But the intricacies of it, I don't really remember. I just remember some of the cheesy stuff we made fun of in some of the cutscenes, like Master. First.
I mean, the cutscenes were always kind of cool. To be honest, I always liked them.
I don't know, man. Some were pretty garbage. Some were pretty good.
I mean, the monster cutscenes. I like them.
The monster cutscenes are awesome. They're badass. Yeah. But like the whole like shoehorn like character arcs. That was just unnecessary. Yeah, that was pretty goofy. But we have a little bit of context, and that's the thing. Like Zelda Hunter would have benefited a lot from context. And so I'm able to formulate a little bit more of a background of maybe why Lou Tyrannus feels the way he does. If not, if I'm completely off the mark, it's whatever. I'm just trying to give some goodwill to someone who's making an argument that just seems to be controversial for the sake of controversial, right? So let us continue. Guys, Birdie and I recorded 3 hours of footage, and I just did not want to drop it all in one video, especially since it is broken up into 2 parts naturally anyway. This video was bad Monster Hunter critique discourse and a critical look at vague and weak criticism as a whole. Part 2, we'll be going over an example of what excellent criticism looks like as we observe Monster Hunter's critique on Monster Hunter Wilds. Spoiler alert, he does go a little hard on Wilds, but man is it a fine example of what you should be doing in a critique, because the best critical pieces make you understand the viewpoints even if you disagree or you can't relate. I hope you guys have a great weekend and a great day. Stay meaty, my friends.
I've got dinner ready. Let him